Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Illustration Department podcast. My name is Giuseppe Castellano. In this podcast, I talk to folks in illustration, graphic design, publishing, animation, and other creative fields about their work, the lessons they've learned, and the bumps and bruises they've experienced along the way. In this episode, my guest is Mariam Quraishi, Senior Designer at Macmillan Children's Publishing Group. It goes without saying that to build an illustration practice, you should seek as much advice and instruction as possible. But as Mariam and I discuss, what you'll really need is patience and time. Among other topics, Mariam answers questions from listeners about how she works with illustrators, the efficacy of postcards, querying agents, and more. And Mariam explains why any visual intrusive thoughts you have should be followed. I hope you enjoy our conversation.
My G-Chat, I can try and turn it off, but I don't think you picked up that sound, but did it? In case it did, I hope it didn't.
I didn't hear anything.
Great, excellent.
Is that how you use,
That's
how you communicate with your colleagues?
That is how we communicate, yes.
G-Chat? All right.
Yeah.
We might weave that into our conversation a little bit.
Sounds good. Yeah, it's very different from Outlook, and it was quite a learning experience for me.
Gotcha.
I really enjoyed the Matthew Forsythe interview.
I think it's Forsythe.
Forsythe, you actually did talk about that in the interview. And of course, I listened to the Kelly Murphy and the Jim Hoover because I know them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Jim says hi. Sorry, I almost forgot. Jim says hi.
Cool. Yeah, I told him I was doing this. And I told Kelly.
Yeah. Nice. Very nice. They were both like, what? Don't you do that.
No.
Now you're like a little loud. This is our last adjustment. If you can go down like two notches.
What are you, my mom?
Seriously, it sounds like my mother too. My mom, Italian, she thinks I walk on water. She thinks I'm the second coming because she's Italian and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
That's how it rolls. Except that every time I see her, the first thing she says to me is always something about how I look.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
She's like, you're getting grayer.
Oh no.
You look older. Are you tired?
Do you ever lob that back to her?
Oh,
or do you
God,
feel
no.
like you would have too much deference?
No, God, no. I've learned that lesson.
Oh, okay.
You do not ever criticize an Italian nonna. Like, that's just not how it works.
For Pakistanis, which is, I'm born and raised in Pakistan, my parents are very open to sarcasm, which I think is unusual, or maybe it's not. And it's just maybe the stereotype of Pakistanis is that they're not necessarily, but like sometimes my mother will say something and I'll be like, you call yourself my mother? And she enjoys it. My dad enjoys it. And yeah, it's fun. Well, there's a great deal of Pakistani deference and respect for elders in our family dynamic, but they allow for a little bit of cattiness.
The Italian sort of dynamic within a family is ribbing, at least in my family, ribbing, little joshing, a little sort of poking fun at. If you take things seriously, you're not going to enjoy your time.
I think that's very much a Pakistani dynamic as well.
Interesting.
I wonder if it has something to do with like large family dynamics in general.
Right.
Because
pushing and pulling.
Yeah. I think it's how you sink or swim.
I've got in trouble because that's how I was raised. That's my background informs my behavior. And so, I don't do it anymore. But back when I was younger in publishing, as you know, there are some sensitive folks in publishing that if you aren't quite sure where those boundaries are, you get some stares, you get some like, you shouldn't have said that, type of thing.
When I first started to neatly bring this conversation back to publishing,
professional,
my first job was at Viking with, I was very lucky to have Denise Cronin as my first boss ever.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember when she would step into my cube, I did in those moments have this very, so I was raised to, and I still do this, when an elder comes into your space, you stand up and greet them. If I'm lying down on the couch and my grandmother shows up, I sit up straight. And I kind of initially definitely had that sort of behavior around Denise. And if she would be looking over my monitor, I would be like, oh, do you want to take a seat at my seat because I felt rude that she was standing and I was sitting.
That's very sweet.
It's so sort of in your DNA, I guess. It's so sort of in the ways that you behave. And she was just like, why? What? No, don't do that.
And she's the kind of personality that she could take. Like, once you got to know her and stuff, like, you could definitely joke and josh with her 100%. Yeah, she was awesome. I hung out in her office quite a bit. Speaking of Penguin, Viking, and Denise and all those things, I was trying to remember how you and I first met.
Oh.
And I think it started with an email. You had sent me an email from RISD about maybe a job or an internship or something.
It was about a job.
Yeah, and I forwarded your resume to Viking, or how did that work?
No.
Okay,
you have forgotten, Giuseppe. This is my moment.
All right.
I actually applied for a job.
It's been a while, and I'm old. Go ahead.
Oh, that's fair. It was 10 years ago. I had actually applied for a job at I guess it was still Grosset at that point in time.
That's right.
And
I was running the joint.
You rejected my expertise,
okay.
But you didn't reject it so much that you wouldn't forward it on to. You had forwarded on my resume to Denise, and I had separately also been in touch with Jim. And then also, I don't know if you know Brian LaRosa. He's at Scholastic.
Sure.
He had visited a class of mine when I was at RISD, and I had stayed in touch with him, and he was very generous with his time as well. And he also forwarded my resume along to Denise, and she told me that I was they had basically chosen somebody else. And then all of these people were like, look at her resume and look at her stuff.
Yeah.
And she was just like, and then you got the job, and now I'm in this industry.
There it is. And I'm just glad that I'm a very, very small part of that. Apparently, I thought I was the entire reason, but apparently not. I'm 1/3 or 1/4 of the reason, which is fine.
No, when I was leaving, and I'm glad she didn't tell me this before, but when I was leaving, she told me, you just all these people were showing your resume to me, and I was like, well, I guess I better look.
I got to pay attention.
Yeah.
I might have done you a favor because I think Viking at the time, not to throw any shade at my old group because I loved the books that we worked on. Loved it. But at the time, we weren't really doing a whole lot of like really pretty trade type of picture books.
Yeah.
And Viking was. And so you got to work on some really special stuff. Not that our stuff wasn't special, but you know what I'm saying. It was like trade versus mass.
I think I'm very much a trade. I think it was probably clear to you too that my heart was set on trade and not mass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I occasionally, when I have an art director on, every now and then, I will solicit questions from patrons on Patreon. And I said to them, I was going to talk to you today. Would you mind sharing some questions? So they wonderfully did. I have a bunch of questions here from illustrators, and it touches on a bunch of stuff that I would have touched on anyways with you, but let's jump into it. Let's just do it.
Okay.
Let's play this game.
Sounds good.
All right. So we're going to start with Kate from Syracuse, New York. Do you give suggestions to the illustrator, or do you expect the illustrator to come up with ideas for the illustrations first and then give them the input? How much give and take is expected? So I'm assuming what she's referring to is you've hired the illustrator. You've given them the manuscript. Do you go in and say, here's what we're looking for? Or do you allow them to sort of interpret the text and then you work with them on the sketches?
I would say about 80% of the time, I give them the text and I say, like, here it is laid out. We'll talk about a trim size. I'll be like, can you give me a few character sketches along with your full round of sketches? And it's totally just, I want to see what they do.
Right.
Sometimes this depends on the author of the book. They might have art notes. There's some tie-in books that I sometimes work on, like, oh, this is a book that's with a podcast or something.
Sure.
And so they have very specific character notes that we have to follow, things like that. So it really varies. Sometimes the author will have notes, sometimes the editor will have art notes. More often than not, the first round is totally a sandbox for them to play in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same answer.
Yeah.
When I was in art, like when when I was an art director, I would say easily 80% of the time it was handing it off to them, letting them do whatever it is that they need to do, especially on covers. Interiors, sometimes we were like, okay, here we need this specific scene, especially with chapter books, not so much with picture books. But on covers, we would say, okay, look, here's the manuscript, read it, give us some ideas on what you think the cover should look like, and then we went from there, instead of specifically saying, have the character on the right and the background on the left, or whatever, depending on the book.
I am recalling now.
Who the author was.
Yeah, this is definitely like picture book dependent, right?
Yeah, for sure.
But I am recalling now the few middle grade chapter books and stuff that I worked on back in the day, because I only work on picture books now. Nice. I know it's very, knock on wood, hope it stays that way. But it is a little bit more prescriptive when it comes to chapter books or like a graphic novel. I've never worked on a graphic novel, but I've seen some scripts, and it is very much direction before they even start art kind of process.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
With chapter books, I would sit down with the editor. Mm-hmm. We would go. She would have a copy, printed copy.
Yeah.
I would have a printed copy, and we'd sit down in my office, at her office, and we'd go through. We'd basically read the book and go through and go, okay, which scene do you think would best represent this chapter right here? And we'd talk about it, and then we'd highlight that scene, and then the scenes themselves became basically the art notes.
Oh, I miss sitting
with.
I do miss sitting with like a printed copy and literally doing that. I really miss that.
Well, I guess that means that you're working mostly, if not entirely, remote at this point?
Yeah, I go into the office.
Okay.
There was a period in time where I was having proofs delivered to my place, but I live in a New York apartment, and so they were all piling up underneath my bed.
You were lifting your bed with them.
Basically, at some point that would have happened. Mm-hmm. I enjoy being in the office occasionally. I like to be in an actual color room. You know, and
Sure.
like, I think that there is so much value to having a color room, and maybe I'm making myself sound like an oldie by saying be in the office.
You're not. No.
But I do wonder how, on an existential level, I suppose, for our industry, what it means to like train some, like how is someone learning about color correction if they're not looking at the art in conjunction with the proof, and you know, along with
good question.
And like the vocabulary for proofing has changed so much. I don't even say very slight magenta anymore. I say, oh, it looks a little muddy, which is totally different. We don't get progs. It's a whole other world. Yeah.
I know.
But I'm really grateful for that training with Denise.
A couple weeks ago, I had an episode with Vanessa Robles, director of production over at Penguin. And we talked a lot about all of that, and how basically she and I are on the same page as you, no pun intended. Just looking at the pages, being in the room, circling things, reduce magenta slightly, add cyan very slightly, based on the art. I mean, it was just it was a different world. And, you know, it is what it is, I guess. On that note, talk about professional segueing here. Leticia from Portland, Maine asks, is sending postcards still a good way to promote our work to a publisher? Or would you rather receive emails and or newsletters? So if you're working mostly remotely, do you still get postcards? I
don't think that I've gotten a postcard in a long time.
Wow.
The one time I've gotten a postcard was a bunch of postcards was I went to an industry day thing at SVA.
Okay.
The truth is you get so many, and then it's kind of, I find it quite difficult to navigate through. And then for me to send, because my colleagues are often remote, I'm in the position to suggest illustrators. I'm not really the final say. Okay. Because I have to suggest them, something digital is far more convenient and doable. Even though I love a postcard, it's really useful to see a print thing for what you're going to you're hiring someone for something that's going to be a printed end product. Right. It's just logical. But I find that I am, and I'm sure a lot of people know this already, and a lot of people do this already, is I find people on Instagram, and I have this little folder that's just called To Hire, and I just put it in my Instagram, and it's so easy to do and convenient. I don't really get a lot of postcards, and I don't want to have, it's things are getting more expensive. Printing's probably going to get more expensive. I would personally discourage people from doing so, only because I think they kind of end up in like a wormhole.
Yeah, I tell illustrators, if you can afford it, why not? Like if you can afford it and it's maybe not a drop in the bucket, maybe it's several drops in a bucket, go for it.
Yeah.
It can't hurt, but I wouldn't rely on it. I think emails are the most effective way of getting your attention, and then social media. Postcards are sort of down the list. They're not off the list, but I wouldn't sweat it if you couldn't or didn't do a round of postcards this year or next.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Not that big of a
I
deal.
also think maybe then another, like maybe a good spot for a postcard then would be if you're at a conference or if you're at a Society of Illustrators thing.
Do you, you've been to conferences and events and things, illustrators come right up to you and say, "Hi, I'm an illustrator, here's my postcard."
I'm okay with that.
Yeah, are you okay?
It's a
what do you
professional
say?
event. What else would you do?
Nothing. I'm making that point just for folks listening, because I do get this question a lot when I mentor illustrators. Like, what do I do? Do I just walk up to them and hand them my postcard? I'm like, yeah, they're there for it. They know they're there for that too. It's okay.
I can understand why someone would be nervous. For one, it's like
Me too,
we become
for sure.
illustrators because we like to look at the world and not necessarily interact with it. We just like to observe, and it's hard. It's hard to
Nice. Yeah.
to then interact with it and say, hey, I have observations about the world that I would love to share in my art. Please let me make it. It's a tough thing to do, but I think having worked in publishing long enough now, I feel like designers are mostly nice people. They like art. They like to look at art.
Right.
They're just overwhelmed.
Right.
We're working on tight deadlines often. We're just tired. That's all.
Exactly.
Don't take anything too personally.
No. On that front, if someone were to send you an email, what, in your view, is the most effective way of writing that email to you?
Oh, I would say for me, it would be short and sweet. It would be like a hi, this is who I am. This is the best way to get in touch with me. This is what I like to do. And then maybe just a few images. I think I'm notoriously bad at not replying, but I always have them saved in a folder.
Yep.
So I return to that folder when, on the off chance that someone is asking me for an illustrator. Sometimes people send PDFs and I'll look at them. Nothing too big, of course, because emails can only hold so much.
Right.
But I would say sometimes I find people put in things that they maybe don't ever want to reproduce. And I would just say, don't do that, because you never know who's going to like that thing, and then you're going to be stuck with a book, potentially a book that you didn't actually want to make.
Right.
Sometimes I'll see an image that really looks like it already has a story involved, and I'll ask about it, or I'll send it to an editor. It's like, oh, imagine this as something, and they keep it. And sometimes that that depends on their schedules and their acquisition lists and whatnot. So
Right.
Yeah.
Couple things on that front. If an illustrator is in the middle of working with a client or has a few clients under their belt, would you recommend them in that email say something to the effect of, in recent months, I've had the pleasure of working with, and not exactly these words, but in recent months, I've had the pleasure of working with Simon & Schuster, Harper, and Enchanted Lion or something. Do you care about that?
Yeah.
How much?
I care about it in that I can see that they know how to make a book. It's
Right.
like that unfair thing of applying for a job for the first time, and they're like, well, what's your job experience? And you're like, I just graduated college. I have none. But it kind of works that way, where it's like, oh, I can, for a project that maybe requires a little bit of heavy lifting, maybe, if you want to call it that, it does kind of lend an illustrator knowing that they kind of know their way around the world of publishing.
Right.
But I do actually love working with first-time illustrators, and I have worked with quite a few, and I enjoy the work of that, but I can understand why someone would maybe for a certain project not want to do that.
Yeah.
If that is a tight turnaround or something.
I've talked about this on the podcast before. I talk about this with illustrators all the time. What really matters is the art. Like if the art's great and it fits what you're looking for, none of the rest of it matters.
Absolutely.
Literally none of it matters.
Exactly.
But if you are emailing back and forth or G-chatting back and forth with your editor about, see how I folded that in there? Mm-hmm. You're going back and forth going like, well, okay, we have these 2 options or 3 options, any one of whom would be great fits. What's the tiebreaker? Is the tiebreaker like, well, this one has actually worked with some publishers. This one looks like hasn't worked with anyone just yet, even though they're all wonderful illustrators.
Yeah.
They all have great portfolios and everything else is like squared away. Where are you breaking that tie?
It could be multiple things in my mind. It could be that one illustrator is available for the timeline that they need it to work in, and the other one isn't.
Right.
The other illustrator has a style, perhaps, in the case that maybe their styles are slightly distinct that the editor doesn't feel works, or that the author doesn't feel works.
Right.
Sometimes it's just serendipitous who gets a book.
Yeah.
It sucks to hear that, I know. But sometimes
great. We should hear that.
But sometimes I at least think that it's kind of freeing, because it's like, oh, it's not like they're reacting to my art negatively. It's just projects are very specific, and there's a whole like stew of things working to make it happen. Timelines, right. Editor, author. I've never been in a position where someone was like, this art is so great, but this illustrator's never worked on a book before, that we're not going to hire them. I haven't worked on a situation like that, but...
Me neither.
But yeah.
Not once. Mm-hmm. That was never part of the conversations I had with editors. Mm-hmm. No one ever asked, no designer, not me, not the editors, none of us ever asked the question, but have they worked with other people before?
Although in the case of, like, say, it's a very big author with a large advance.
Yeah, you want a steadier hand.
Yeah, a steadier hand, but also, like, I think that sales track then, and that's a conversation I'm not even a part of, does impact things.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, so then the other question I have for you regarding emails is based on a conversation I had with an illustrator this week. Now, I'm pausing here for a quick second. Mm-hmm. I had another conversation with an illustrator this week who asked me, she said, in your podcast episodes, you occasionally will start a question by saying, I spoke with an illustrator this week, or I spoke with an illustrator today. She said, is that really true? I'm telling you, Mariam, and everyone listening, it is 100% true.
Okay.
So I did speak with an illustrator this week. I said to them, you should be emailing art directors right about now, before the holidays start rolling in. Like, now's a good time. They said, well, I haven't really done anything new over the last 3 months. To which I responded, who gives a shit? What did you send them 3 months ago? Oh, here's the attachment. Here's my portfolio. I'm like, yeah, send it again.
Yeah.
Send it exactly the same way you sent it before.
Exactly.
They like fell out of their chair. They couldn't. They're like, what are you talking about? That's not what I was told. That's not what people say. Mm-hmm. So I'm here to ask you, Mariam, do you give a shit if an illustrator sends you an attachment or some, attachments that they had sent you 3 months prior?
No, because I've probably seen like maybe 100 since, and my memory is so fleeting sometimes,
Thank you.
And I think you need to, it's like that marketing thing, right? You have to just show the same thing over and over again till it sticks, and then they buy into it.
Exactly.
And I think it's also about being top of mind. At least that's what Kelly Murphy told me to do.
Hey,
it's exactly what, yeah, exactly. And a classmate, no?
Oh, yeah. We had an illustration competition in class once. We talked about this, she and I, on the episode. The Providence Journal had teamed up with our teacher had teamed up with the Providence Journal, and it was going to be a holiday-themed illustration, big printing in the Providence Journal. And so the class did a piece based on this article that they had provided. Mm-hmm. The winner would get printed in the Providence Journal. Let me just think. What was I doing? I was doing it in my apartment. That was senior year. So it was senior year. I did like a Providence scene with Mayor Cianci and a bunch of people in this like collage-y kind of style, and I thought it was really good. Kelly had done a girl like looking up to the sky, and there was like a star that she was like reaching out to. Mm-hmm. Lovely. She won, and I got second place.
Oh,
yeah.
Well.
Totally derailed my illustration career.
And now she's made so many books. All because of that Providence Journal.
Oh, if I had only won that, yeah.
Have
Anyway,
have you ever art directed, Kelly?
No, I haven't.
Well, I have. And it was
She's a jerk.
delightful.
Oh, okay.
No, it was really fun.
Well, she's a delightful person, so
Yeah.
what do you expect?
And that was actually a very, it was like a middle grade YA novel, and there were illustrations on the inside, and it was quite, not so prescriptive, but slightly. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think I derailed the answer. What were we talking about? Attachments?
Attachments, sending things over again. I'm for it. I think that maybe put a personal term limit on your own work, just because you change, your hand changes, the way you draw changes, and try to keep it relevant to what you can recreate at some point. And maybe that will bring us to other broader discussions about what you show and what you want to make and stuff like that.
It's coming.
But I think there's no harm in it. I'm for it.
This podcast is produced by the Illustration Department, a global leader in online education for illustrators. Visit illustrationdept.com for offerings like mentorships and portfolio reviews, testimonials, our alumni showcase, our best-selling Substack, and more. That's illustrationdept.com. And now, back to our conversation. So, on that note, look at us just segueing like a bunch of pros. Amazing. So, Katya, this is in line too. I'm not even cherry picking these questions. These are totally in line. So, Katya from San Francisco, California, asks, if you were advising an illustrator with professional experience and some recognition, but still trying to break into major book publishing, which I'm reading, getting
Big Five.
work from,
Big Four,
Five.
Big One, whatever. It's all just house right now. We're all just called
it's all
house.
Yeah. Mac House Gwyn or something. It'll happen one of these days. Just kidding, folks. Still trying to break into major book publishing. So Macmillan, Penguin, Random, Scholastic. What's the one thing you'd suggest focusing on?
Oh.
Yeah. So they're professional. I know Katya. Hi, Katya. She's doing some stuff. She's got some clients. She's, doing her thing. She's not in that, like, I'm just building my portfolio stage. What do I do next? She's beyond that. So if she wants to really crack the big 5 or 4, what should she be focusing on?
So
it's a tough question.
It is a tough question. I mean, for her own art, I would say, I imagine she is clearly skilled if she's already got clients.
Very.
And I think focusing on that and making sure it's just promoting yourself. It's on social media, going to a Society of Illustrators event where you can just hand out postcards.
Right.
If they're based in New York.
They're not.
But I think that the thing that's coming up for me is, and what I did myself when I was approached for a book was I said, pause, I'm going to find an agent. And I know that you don't need to have an agent to be an illustrator, and even at a big house, you would as an author. But it is sometimes the thing that keeps you from making that leap. And especially keeps you from making that leap if you are an author illustrator, I would say. It's another layer of approval almost then that Katya would have to go through, of like finding an agent they feel good about, or that feels good about them. It's kind of both ways. It's like applying for, I liken it to like applying for college. Like you want a good fit for you, but you want also to be accepted by them. It's a two-way street. I see that as the often the impediment.
That they don't have an agent.
I think that sometimes that's what it is, because I think that everybody comes in with the best of intentions of wanting to find incredibly skilled, talented illustrators, but sometimes the ease of going to an agent's website and just finding people that you can work with, and there's some sort of like structure for you to work with them.
Right, they're vetted
creates
too.
They're vetted. I hate that that's the answer that I'm giving, because I wish I had more for this. And I know you don't feel necessary.
No.
I feel like I've heard you talk about this before, that you're not pro-agent necessarily for illustrators.
I'm not pro-agent, but it depends on the agent. I don't think and I've had plenty of agents on the podcast, and many of them are still my friends and all that good stuff. Okay. But I just don't see as a group. Now, there are individual agents who are just kicking ass, doing a ton of marketing, like really like sweating, bleeding, crying for their clients, and that's great. Not the crying part. And then there are some agents who are doing absolutely jack for their clients.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, but generally, as a group, I don't think an agent does as much for you as illustrators. The illustration community assumes they do. That's what I'm trying to get at when I talk to agents on the podcast. So I'm hearing Katya. I think Katya right now is like listening to this, and she's shouting to the rooftops, I have an agent. Oh. I already have an agent. She already has an agent.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that sort of nullifies that part of it. Yeah. So she has an agent. She does great work.
Yeah.
I think, to answer Katya's question and to anybody listening, when you're at that place where you are already working with some clients and things like that, you want to just try and get the attention of these bigger... By the way, that assumes that the bigger, maybe you'll get bigger budgets, maybe, but that also assumes that they're somehow better clients, which isn't a safe assumption.
Yeah, that's not a safe assumption. I agree.
But to get their attention is to find every single senior designer, art director, design director, creative director, literally every designer, anyone who's going to hire an illustrator at all of these houses, and email them every 3 months until they start hiring you.
Yes. Sorry. Now I'm like realizing the full breadth of this question and like, duh. I think it because it tags on to all the previous questions. Right. I can talk about how I have found work for books.
Yeah, as an illustrator.
As an illustrator.
All right. Talk to me.
Literally, sometimes it was accidental adding people on Instagram.
What do you mean accidental?
It was not accidental so much as just like. So there was one of my book projects. The editor found out about me because I followed her on Instagram. And the reason that I followed her on Instagram was in 2020, leading up to the election, said editor worked on a book with Mina Harris and Marissa Valdez. And I saw Mina Harris post like a shared story. So it says who posted it, like a reshare. And it was like someone showing proofs of her upcoming book. And I was like, someone who has proofs of that book, first of all, had to have been the person making the book. And so I followed. And that's how she saw my website. And that's how I got hired for a book. Many months later, she had already sent the author a list of illustrators and then added my name in at the end because I happened to follow her at the time. And that
Seems
is
like
how
a theme for you.
Yeah, it really is. It's kind of like, and that's how I got to do a book written by Malala. So like, that's what you should do.
There it is.
Yeah.
So to recap, and this is, I'm going to be broken record. It's broken record time, everybody. To recap, you want to email art directors every 3 months. Keep it short and sweet. Send them your work. You want to follow them on Instagram. So if you're out there listening going like, well, I hate Instagram. I don't want to post and dance and do all these reels. We're not saying that. We're saying find out who's on Instagram, editors and art directors, and follow them. Do the same thing on LinkedIn. Basically, what we're trying to say is you want to get yourself out there as much as you possibly can because it is serendipitous. There is a little bit of luck involved. And to your phrasing, stay front of mind. You want to stay front of mind. The other sucky ingredient to all of this, and this might be the suckiest ingredient, is patience and time.
Yeah.
Because not very many people, for very valid reasons, have the patience or the time. You know, like bills to pay, children to raise, things going on else other than art in their lives.
Absolutely.
So who are we to be like, oh, just be patient. It takes time. You can do it. Just get cozy in your little studio and drink your warm cup of tea and just have loads of fun with your art. Don't worry, it'll happen, is kind of bullshit advice. Well, I mean, it's good advice, but it also sucks because not everybody can do that. Yeah.
And also like cut to like an illustrator awake at 1 a.m., their hair a mess. Like it's you're not sitting like, you're not sitting with your cup of tea and a little candle in your window.
Right.
It's not
overlooking a pretty view out. I mean,
I overlook the New York skyline.
I overlook trees that I worry are going to fall on my house one day.
Oh.
That's what I do.
Actually, that I also look at trees, but they're on the other side of the street. But I did have a tree fall a house away from us. It was quite loud.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
No, trees falling that's a thing in my life. That's a pretty common occurrence. A tree fell on my wife's house when we were dating, right before we moved from Brooklyn to here. And I mean like a week before. A giant tree on our street in Bay Ridge fell right in front of our house and smashed a couple of cars, and one of the branches came within inches of hitting our car.
Oh my gosh.
And we were like in the middle of packing. Yeah, me too.
Yeah, that's what happened when this tree fell. It fell right by a playground across the street from me.
Good Lord.
And luckily it was drizzling, so nobody was outside.
Right.
But yeah.
If anybody can hear that, I'm dog sitting. Yeah, I'm dog sitting my brother-in-law's dog.
Well, that's fun.
Leo. He's losing it.
What kind of dog is Leo?
He's some kind of poodle mix. They told me like 1,000 times, but I keep forgetting. A something oodle. I don't know. I'm just going to wait till he exhausts himself.
Okay.
Look, in all seriousness, people can sit in whatever studios they want. I don't have a studio. I have a dining room table. They could be looking out the window at whatever, a brick wall, a freaking ocean, doesn't matter. What matters is you just need to do good work, get your work out there as much as you possibly can, bottom line.
Yeah. It's hard to do, though, when the reality of life is that you have to have, like, another job to support your dream, or...
Right.
I don't know. The weather is so bad that you can't, I don't know, your hand is stiff and you can't move. It's so many things.
Oh, I mean, so many things. I'm working with somebody right now who's dealing with carpal tunnel.
Yeah.
And someone else who had to leave the country. When I was an art director, I was working with illustrators who's had family members who passed, who had traveled abroad and lost their passport and they got stuck. I mean, there's like so many different things that happen.
Yeah.
Because you can't be an illustrator in a vacuum. You have to be an illustrator and also a human on top of that.
Yeah, and the truth is that most illustrators are doing two jobs.
Of course. If not more.
I am the annoying person who's always like, take however much time you need. And I sometimes get like probably in trouble with production or whomever, because I'm just like, no, they need the time to do this.
Yeah, you're pro illustrator because you're an illustrator.
Well, I know. That's why I'm also just like constantly angry. No.
It's like you talk to your editor. Okay, no problem. I can't wait to work on this book. So tell me what's the budget? And they tell you the budget. And you're just like,
because I work on royalty-based things, I don't actually know what those are. I'm not responsible for that. I love that. I really do get to be like completely sheltered from some very unpleasant parts of this job.
When I was at Simon & Schuster and at Penguin, my teams, we were the ones who sent out the contracts to the illustrators, not the editors. And we even there were discussions about that. Should we not be doing that anymore? And should it always be with the editorial group? We said no, and we kept it that way. It just made more sense. It was more efficient. Yeah. I'm going to send the illustrator that I hired the contract, and then we can talk about what they like about it, what don't they like about it. We can negotiate. And there were lots of points that we could negotiate, which were pretty easy. Dates, fees, things like that. Things that were a little deeper that weren't within our purview, then we would check in with the contracts department and say, hey, this illustrator wants to take this out, or this agent has said that this isn't. So the contracts department was there to help us, but we would negotiate. Anyway, so you're saying that's not the case with you guys?
Yeah, I very rarely had to work on a contract because I'm only on picture books and it's trade. It's usually royalty based. And when that's the case, it goes through editorial. And that's been the case, Penguin, Chronicle, and now Macmillan, which is my resume there.
Nice.
The few times that I've done covers for middle grade or YA, or not even YA, I haven't done much YA, but middle grade was always, that was, because that's a flat fee that went through me. I barely remember how I did it. Kelly was the first time I actually did that, and she was negotiating hard. And
you accidentally hit the 0 button on your keyboard. You were like, what?
I was like, oops.
I guess we're just going to have to pay her that much.
I guess so. No, I don't really have to deal with contracts very much. I'm very sheltered from that part of the job.
Lucky.
It is lucky. But yeah, in terms of just being an illustrator in disguise at work, kind of, I'm kind of always like, oh, we should run that by them first. Oh, no, I don't know. Do you think that's too much work for them? But I think that I do think actually the more I've seen it, most designers are just the advocate for the illustrator more often than not.
Oh, for sure.
And I don't think it's just because I'm an illustrator. Sometimes I might say, you should trust me because I'm an illustrator. I'll hold your time and your labor in my mind when I make these suggestions.
Yeah. I had to hold back sometimes, and I caught myself. Sometimes I'd cross that line, and most of the time I would stay on my side of that relationship. Because as an illustrator, occasionally I'd just doodle a cover and email it to the illustrator and say, "Oh, I was thinking about something like this." And if I were to do it all over again, I would never do that.
I don't often send like drawn out doodles of cover concepts. When I do, I make sure they're really rough, and I apologize profusely to make up for that.
Right. You're like, something like this. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Whatever, try it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Different houses are so different about how they treat like cover direction. And in my current job, we do a lot of comping up depending on the timeline of the project. So it'll always be with interior illustrations that exist already that I will comp things up and say, these are some options. What do you think? And that's not always the case. It's just like if there's a tight timeline.
Yeah.
And if the illustrator's like, actually, I'm overwhelmed working on the interior. Can you give me some comps that I can jump up, use as a sounding board, essentially?
Exactly. Communicate.
Yeah.
Illustrators, you want to communicate with your designer.
Yeah.
Always.
I think that I like that. I like when they talk to me. I like when they tell me why.
Same.
I think that critique has still... I don't know, maybe you feel differently about this, but I still can't handle critique. I'm still stressed out by it. So whenever I do get notes back from them, I'm like, I hope you know that this is not personal. It's always in service of the book. But for them, I always understand it is personal because their name is literally on the cover.
Exactly.
So it is a source of great anxiety for me to do that.
We should we should enact a new rule where in the copyright text it says many of the art decisions were made by the designer if the illustrator is not happy with the final product. Just mostly illustrated by and then the illustrator's name.
Oh man, I don't think they'd like that.
No. all the things you don't like about the illustrations, courtesy of, and then your name. I have another question which sort of ties into what we've been talking about. Agents, agencies, how do you stand out and this and that? So I have another question by Mari from St. Paul, Minnesota. It's funny, when I've done this in the past, I usually get some folks from other countries, but this is an all-American episode apparently.
Oh, interesting.
Mari asks, when literary agencies send out illustration lookbooks and emails sharing multiple illustrators, because you were referring earlier about how it's a little easier sometimes, do you find artists that way? The answer is yes. Do you have any suggestions that might help our work stand out when it's among loads of talented illustrators in these lookbooks? That is a great question. For folks who are like, wait, what the hell did you just say? A lookbook is essentially think of it like a multi-page PDF. Sometimes it's interactive, sometimes it's not. A lot of agencies put this together and they'll send it to you or whoever, some other publishing professional. Yeah. It's got samples of every illustrator that they represent. Yeah. I get this question a lot from illustrators. This week, an illustrator asked me, they weren't super happy with how their agent did it. Their agent sent out a lookbook and it was cluttered and there was just a lot of stuff and her work got lost. So great question, Mari. What would you say, Mariam, about how do you stand out within that kind of formatting?
I have opinions on what sort of agents one approaches. And then I will have an answer for how to handle it if you have some kind of an agent.
All right.
I am with a literary agency. And often a literary agency will not have many clients of the same working style so that each client shines. Right. And I think that's a huge reason why I'm pro being with a literary agency. And so if you are an illustrator still looking for for an agent, I would recommend going with a literary agent rather than a large illustration agency, because some of the currency of having an agent is shining in a small group of people, but also about the attention that they can give you and the sort of career growth that they can give you. A lot of larger agencies are more interested in just like one project to the next rather than considering the trajectory of you throughout your career.
Right.
And that is a way to just, without having to necessarily cater your art to the agency, you cater the agency to who you are and what you aim to achieve.
Exactly.
And I also think that having seen some of these, having been approached by some of those agencies, I think they have fairly draconian contracts, which are just not fair to illustrators. So I would encourage a lot of caution before even stepping into that space.
Like what? Name one.
Like very large percentages of the advance. Or I was approached by an agency that basically if I had broken contract with them, they would own rights to my art for 5 years after. They were purporting to own, if I signed with them, art that I had made prior to signing with them. Like that's
Nope.
pretty ridiculous.
That's off the table.
It is.
Yep.
And I'm glad I didn't do it because these agencies grow so fast and they also charge you for their promotion. They charge
Yeah.
you for the printing, they charge you for all of that. And
I would negotiate that out personally.
Yeah.
And if the agent's like, well, we don't really do that,
Then they're not
that's not
for
something
you.
then I'm like, well,
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll bump into each other at a conference or,
Yeah.
well, I don't do conferences anymore.
Yeah.
I'll say, okay, well then, unfortunately, it's just not going to work out. Have a great
Yeah.
day.
Yeah.
Good luck to you.
You don't have to sign it someone who approached
No, you don't. You can do anything you want to do as an illustrator without an agent. That is a fact.
Exactly.
I've said this before on the podcast, and we're talking about it, and it's worth saying again. Illustrators and writers can do anything they want to do in the publishing space without an agent. An agent without illustrators and writers will not be an agent. Literally can't do their job.
That said, because I have a full-time job and that's part of the asset one. I don't have my own agent.
Again, I'm not trying to criticize agents.
Yeah. Well, I just want to make sure that she knows that if and when she hears this.
Yeah, there's
But
lots of great ones. So
there is also this sort of ease of mind that comes with knowing someone else is negotiating a contract for you,
Right.
or just guiding you through the process of publicity and helping you through that.
Oh, 1,000%. And they have the experience with like what they've done with other clients in terms of
Yeah.
marketing. Like
Yeah.
I don't know what to do with marketing my book. It's coming out in 3 months. Oh, let me share with you a couple of things that I did that these other clients did. So like, there's lots of information there for sure. Listen to me backtracking. I'm not backtracking. It's just nice to know there's another person in this industry who is thinking of you and your work.
Yeah.
When you're not,
Yeah.
or when you're doing your own thing. You know what I'm saying? So like, it's just nice to have a partner.
Exactly. And again, and I really do, I think that it's important to have someone who will think about the length of your career, not just the next project.
Exactly.
And I think that when you're early on I would say I'm still early on in my career, though I now have 3 books done. So that's, early on.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's just helpful to have someone be there with you because it is a very solitary job.
Yeah, for sure.
Most of the time.
Oh, yeah.
In terms of just standing out, I would say within, a big portfolio of work is I'm a big proponent of following that like intrusive thought in your head that like you desperately want to make and that you can't get out. Sometimes I think that at least I, as an illustrator, I'm like, the thing that feels easiest to make or the thing that is like that I really want to make is the thing I shouldn't make. And it's backwards logic. It's like, why shouldn't I do that? This is a job I've chosen because I enjoy it. So why shouldn't the content of what I make be the thing that I enjoy?
Well said.
And I think some of it comes from feeling like if it feels easy, if it doesn't feel laborious, that somehow it's wrong. And I think we in different ways, all of us illustrators fall into that trap. But I think that the way that your work shines, and you can tell someone's enjoyed a piece or working on a piece because the end product is often spectacular. And so I would say this is a little bit abstract, but follow the thing that you're really interested in and keep doing it.
There you go.
Most of the time when I'm in these meetings and looking at just large decks of art. It's the ones that have a story behind it.
Yep.
I am personally very much a fan of seeing how someone draws like a grandparent, because I think they're really cute. And also I think that it really shows the ways in which, like, I think a kid is like all smooth and just like kind of like big and round, like a big head and a smaller body. But like drawing skills really come out, or like character design skills really come out with like a grandparent, because I feel like you can just show more character in a way.
Now I'm just imagining like a Pakistani grandma and an Italian grandma, and they're like hanging, they're buddies, and they're talking to each other about how old and tired their children look.
Absolutely. Yeah. And they're going to that restaurant in Staten Island, and they're both cooking. The grandma restaurant?
100%.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's funny. There you go. There's another prompt. Show two grandmas, one's Pakistani, one's Italian, and they're having like lunch, something like that.
We also have a meatball situation that we make, like a kofta kebab. Yeah. So they could like compare the meatballs and be like,
oh my God, done.
This is with rice, this is with spaghetti.
Right. And they met when they were kids, so you can do a little flashback action. Yeah. There's your book right there.
Yeah, there we go.
I'm realizing the time. Holy crap. We have to end it, sadly. This usually happens like around the latter part of the conversations when we're just starting to roll is when I'm like, oh darn, sorry. So I'm going to oh darn and sorry it and ask you one more question, which is what you've already provided a ton of advice, but what would be one last piece that you want to share with illustrators listening?
Ooh. So the thing that I didn't know would really bump up against me when I first graduated was, and maybe you think this is obvious, I didn't have a clear workspace. Like I didn't have a proper desk.
Okay.
And I assumed that I could just do the thing that I used to do as a kid, which is sit in front of a television and draw. And I didn't treat my illustration like a job. I have since literally scheduled in time, after work. Like these are the days where I will do nothing. I won't do laundry. I won't cook dinner on this day. I will only work. So like treat it like a job that has time scheduled in for it. My workspace for my office work and my illustration work, because I have the space to do that, I'm lucky enough to do that, are distinct from one another. I never have to like clean up my desk now after I'm thinking more practically.
Oh, for sure.
Clean up my desk after like a long night of drawing. And it is huge to have that space. It encourages productivity. I think just like thinking about it and taking it seriously is very important. And I think we undermine it sometimes because it may not be our main source of income, and not the thing that gives us health insurance. And I think just like follow your, visual intrusive thoughts for drawing to their natural conclusions and see what happens. Because I think that's usually where really great art comes from.
To learn more about Mariam, visit mariamquraishi.com. If you find value in this podcast, you can support it by subscribing to my best-selling Substack. For $5 a month or $50 a year, you will access hundreds of articles on the art, practice, and history of illustration, unlock bonus podcast episodes called Extra Credit, and connect with other members of the ID community. Join me on Substack by visiting illustrationdept.substack.com. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.